Alright, so side decking. Most people might not know that in every card game I play, I don't side deck. Ironically, I do agree with side decking in Magic per se, but it's not really necessary per se. But like I kind of understand side decking in Magic. Um, just saying that is like I'm not against it in Magic per se. To a certain degree, it makes a little bit of a sense in the way that game plays out mostly. But in other card games in general, shouldn't be necessary. Especially in Yu-Gi-Oh, definitely shouldn't be necessary. But anyway, I digress. One is that I don't side deck, regardless if it's allowed or not, or people agree with the side decking being part of a game or not. That's a little irrelevant. The main point I'm making is that I don't side deck. So because I don't side deck, I either have to be really good and not need a side deck, right? Not be able to have one. Which is the main thing that I lean towards the most is like, if I built my deck right, I shouldn't need a side deck, right? I built my deck to have a win con, a win condition, a way to get from point A to point B. So I have a plan, and as long as I execute the plan, the result that I want should happen, right? The end game, right? So if I have a win con, then that's all I really need. But for some other people, they like to play the games a little different. Some people want a better chance of increasing their chances of winning a certain matchup, especially an unfavorable matchup, especially when their opponent's deck is better, stronger, faster, right? So then they want to have something to help them combat it. So they want a way to either try to slow their opponent down in case their opponent's deck is faster than the deck, make it hard, maybe swap out some cards to put in some stronger cards, because the cards you have in your main deck are probably not strong enough to deal with your opponent's deck. So you need some stronger effects. So you swap out cards so you can have stronger effects. But the most common thing I see in most side decks, especially like in Yu-Gi-Oh and other card games like that, is the idea of of like floodgates and stuff like that. Just basically kryptonite, right? The weaknesses, silver bullets, or whatever terms you want to use, cards specifically used to help you exploit certain weaknesses that might present themselves in your opponent's deck, right? If your opponent's deck does a lot of free plays, right, through effects, then something like a Black Mass Sane would be useful against that, especially if the battle cards are 15k or less power. So it'd be useful to play a Black Mass Sane. And I get it. It kind of slows your opponent down, and that's usually the idea. It's just to use it as a way to slow your opponent down, to make your opponent second guess. But personally, for me, for all that, if I need to slow my opponent down while I'm playing, I'd rather just main deck that. Just find some space for it. That's why I like the term spice. I prefer spice over side decking. I prefer to have cards that, I tech into my decks for specific matchups, or find cards that have multiple effects, and hopefully one of those effects is an effect that I can use against certain decks. Like, for example, most people would try to use, what was it? It's a 2-drop Jiren, if I'm right. It's like some black 2-drop Jiren that they try to use against hand control, right? Me, I use some unisons that, specifically in blue, I use unisons that have a draw ability. So most of my unisons have draw abilities. Like my Radish Giant Force has a draw effect.
L2502.
There'll be Gotenks Absolute Unison that has a draw effect where you draw 2 by minusing 2. Was it? Then my Super Saiyan 4 Goku Protector the Earth Unison has a -1 draw 2 bottom deck 1 card effect. So the fact that they have draw abilities helps me against hand control. So of course my leader, drawing when I swing, and um, if I place something like 4-star ball with Goku Adventure Begins, then that's something that I can use defensively. I can discard that card whenever my opponent plays hand control, and then add it back to my hand. So or in general, any card that works in the graveyard, I have no problem discarding. So having cards in my deck that work in the drop area, um, like the Draw Ape, for example. I don't use it personally, but the Draw Ape is as an example. Frieza's United Universe 7 Frieza, the barrier blocker you can play from the drop area. Dr. Leche in my Hatchiyak deck, and the list goes on, right? Or if I'm playing some type of like Overwhelm or whatever, I'll take advantage of the fact that I got stuff going through the drop. Um, Graveyard negates you can play from the graveyard, stuff like that. So I try to incorporate things like that and take that to account. Whereas like if I go up against hand control, um, good thing I have cards that are still useful in the grave, or at least I can always get them back, or I draw a lot. Like for example, Bulma on her Awakened side, you draw 2 cards through her effect, plus you draw for your turn, so that's 3 cards right there. And if you play like a unison that draws a card, then that's a potential 4th card. So 4 cards a turn will help you fight back against hand control. So just in general, drawing a lot of cards is good in general, right? Hand advantage. But against hand control, I try to make sure that most of the cards in my deck have some ability to help me draw just in case. But typically, and that's what I'm saying, it's like that's an added effect. That's not why I use them. That's just an added effect, and I take advantage of that. If I need it, I use it. But obviously, my Raditz, he's mainly for the blocking ability. My Gotenks is mainly for his -3 ability to clear my opponent's board of up to 2 battle cards with barrier, and my 5-drop Super Saiyan 4 Goku Protector of the Earth Unison. That is for its auto, its Floodgate ability auto, where it makes it hard for my opponent to attack on the next turn, and its -2 ability to ignore barrier and bounce my opponent's battle cards to the hand. So basically a board wipe. So that's what they're in the deck really for those purposes. Not Gotenks. Of course, Gotenks is a dual attack blocker, and Raditz is a blocker that can potentially block twice because it's auto. And then not only is the Gotenk, the Goku unit 5-drop unison, being an Floodgate ability, negate essentially, so it makes it kind of like what is it called, a time walk basically, right? It's a way I can try to get an extra turn. Basically kind of like a baby Hatchiyak, but you play on your turn in order to get the effect of your opponent's turn type of thing. Of course, it's a board wipe on top of the fact that it is a body you can swing with, so it has some use, but the ability to get that extra turn and be able to board wipe. So board wiping and getting that Floodgate ability are 2 useful things to help me get to my next turn for when I try to clear my opponent's board. But the fact that I could always board wipe again the following turn before I make a certain play is useful, especially if I'm going to do Turning the Tides, because then I can clear my opponent's board of any potential blockers, then drop Turning the Tides. All the cards in his hands go back in the deck, so I just got rid of all those potential threats off the board, so I was able to board wipe as well as hand wipe, right? And now then I can go for game, right, type of deal. So those 2 combined are really powerful. But you get it, it's like the idea is that I have a strategy. The first 4 damage is the easiest, next 2 requires a little effort, the last 2 is the hardest. So my whole goal is to deal 2 damage. My goal is to bypass blockers, negates, and a huge hand size. That is all I gotta deal with and all I gotta worry about when I play this game. Most people are too, focused on making the game more complicated than it really is, to the point where they literally add extra things to the game, like trying to deal with certain cards. Is like, oh, I need a card for when for Turning the Tides, or I need a card for Cell Zeno, or this and that, or I need a card if my opponent plays aggro, and so forth and so forth. It's like, I take a lot of that stuff to account, don't get me wrong. But the thing is that I don't need a side deck in order to take those cards to account. That's what I'm trying to say. I take the possibility that my opponent can probably play multiple battle cards. That's why I play Floodgate Negates, like Violent Rays, Flying Nimbus, Oceanus, Topo, that kind of stuff. Right, I'll try to incorporate something in the deck that can take advantage of it. Preferably a battle card that's a Floodgate Negate. That way, not only can I Floodgate Negate and survive a turn from somebody trying to aggro me to death, I can also put a body on board, a body that could potentially use to, for the clapback. So that way I can use it to potentially go for game myself. So, that kind of stuff. So it's like I'm prepared for aggro inherently in every deck, right? I'm prepared for hand control in every deck inherently. That's why like for example against Turning the Tide, right? I Most of my leaders that I tend to play tend to be draw leaders more often than the untapped energy leaders. They tend to be draw leaders, so I save my awakening for that type of situation, especially if I know my opponent is probably playing Turning Tides or might be playing Turning Tides. If they're playing blue, they might be playing it, so I'll take that to account. I'm like, oh, blue deck, Turning Tide might be in there, so I'll be careful. Granted, I'll try to win before they can play it, but if I can't beat them before they can play it, at least I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna save my awaken. Another reason for saving my awaken, not just for Turning Tides, but it's also for defense. But in general, it's in case I need those extra 2 cards to help me out combo and attack. It'd be good to save my awaken for that. Also good to save my awaken to kind of confuse my opponent, because my opponent might forget that when I awaken I'll become 15k, because they're so used to seeing only a 10k leader the whole entire match, and they might forget that I'm 15. I had that happen to me once. Once as in this weekend that I played at my locals, I had that happen where my opponent attacked, and what was it, at the locals or was it on Untap? Oh, one of the two, because I have been playing on Untap a little bit this week. So one of the two scenarios happened where my opponent attacked, and then they didn't combo, and I'm like, okay, awaken, draw 2, and that's it. they didn't take into account that, like, oh yeah, he can awaken. You know what I mean? Maybe I should have comboed just in case he does awaken. So I was able to literally stop an attack just by awakening. So that's the importance of saving your awaken, for mostly late game, because you can use it defensively. If it's untapped 2 energy, you can use it offensively. And right now I'm getting into some game theory, right? Obviously, man, I know way too much about this game, but the point is that I already take a lot to account. So, that's that's the level of experience and mastery I have. That I take a lot to account. So my decks are built the way they are for that reason. Sometimes it's hard to translate, especially through deck profiles, translate my knowledge and experience to to whoever's watching my videos. It's like the best I can do is show you the deck, explain a couple key cards, key details of the deck that's important to know and understand, but the rest is up to you as a player. I can't give you, I try, especially through my masterclass videos, I try to give you insight to the way I think, the way I play. So hopefully, if you can adopt my train of thought, my play style, it will make it easier for you to be able to incorporate that either to the way you build your decks, whether you net deck or not, or you build it from scratch, or if you net deck off of me, you'll be able to play my decks a lot the way I play, because you have, my train of thought, right? You have my knowledge and experience from my videos. So I try to share my knowledge. I try to give people the ability to do. I would love to hear some feedback from people who have been playing and have been benefiting from the results. There's at least one person, give him a shout out, Nino Machado. Give him a shout out, because at least he points out that he has been listening to what I say in my videos, and been improving, which is always good. That's the whole idea, is that I'm sharing my knowledge and experience. The better I get at the game, and then share my knowledge, my experience, um, I expect everybody else to get better. You know, because it'd be boring if I'm good and everybody else is bad. It makes the game pointless. It's like, damn, what's the point of being good at the game if everybody else is gonna be bad at it, and then it's just pointless, right? It's like Mike Tyson in a daycare, boxing all the children. It's unfair. It's unfun, and you know, not a good look, right? For Mike Tyson to be boxing a whole bunch of 5-year-olds. So I expect the community to get better and improve, which is why I have no problem sharing my spice, right? I have no problem sharing my thoughts and insights, my experience, because I want players to get better, right? If I'm leveling up, I want other players to level up too, so that way, the games will be more interesting, more exciting. Because wouldn't it be better when you see a boxing match, you see two experienced boxers boxing it out? You don't want to see two noobs boxing, right? You don't want to see two noobs playing, right? You want to see experienced players playing. So the same goes for me. Like when it comes to the game, it's like I want to be able to play against more experienced players. I do play like on Untap once in a while when I get a chance, and a lot of times it doesn't feel that I'm playing. I mean, it's very well. I'll say like maybe 2 or 3 games that I played that really felt like, okay, these are good players. They know what they're doing. They're doing some really cool shit. But on average, it's like, oh, okay, this person at least knows how to play the game at the most basic level, but everything they're doing is literally basic. It's like, okay, nothing impressive here, right? One measure of, for me, when it comes to the way I measure and gauge my opponent's skill level, is based off of damage output. The faster they deal me damage, the more I'm like, okay, this person knows what they're doing and their deck is pretty good. All right, I should not underestimate them. But if my opponent's literally just 1 damage per turn, I'm like, oh, that's the best you can do, is just output 1 damage a turn. Like, and I'm using and if I do combo, it's only 5k, or most of the time I'm just taking the damage. I'm like, yeah, you're only doing 1 damage a turn. I'm okay. I'll take it. I'm not gonna waste hand size or negates trying to stop your attack if all you're gonna do is a measly, measly 1 damage a turn. It's like, all right. So that's the thing. So a lot of times, most of my opponents tend to be like that. Granted, part of it might be because most people on Untap are probably play testing. So it's probably like maybe the first or second time they're playing a deck, so they're not yet comfortable enough to like go all in, right? So so you can kind of say they might be holding back. But that's the thing, is that I would prefer much more skillful players to play against in that scenario. But I mean, hey, beggars can't be choosers, right? I mean, I'm grateful that anyone plays me on tap. Especially late at night. I'll be like at 2-3 o'clock in the morning looking for an opponent to play, and sometimes it takes a while, and then an opponent does appear. So I'm grateful that somebody at least appears, even if their skill level might not be on my level, or they might just be trying out a deck for the first time, so they don't know what they're doing. So it's just going to be a long, boring match because they're trying to figure out the deck. So since they're trying to learn, and I'm just trying to get a quick spar, right? A quick epic battle real quick, but they're trying to learn, so it creates a problem. This is why it's better to have essentially a sparring partner, right? Have somebody. That's why having a team is awesome. Having people you can play. Hopefully soon, my teammate has let me know that he's interested in play testing more, so that's good. I'm definitely interested in that. So it's like, finally, I need someone to be able to play test against and fine tune couple of my decks in the heat of battle, as they say. Also, I need to make sure, because I'm trying to play the game a little bit different. I'm always trying to evolve the strategies and the tactics I use when I play. So I don't believe in citing in cards, right? But I do believe in citing in experience. I do believe in changing up the way I play my cards periodically to avoid my my opponent being predictable. And sometimes you have to adapt. Sometimes sometimes you just don't have the card. Even if I sided in cards, let's say I did have a side deck and I sided in cards, the likelihood of me drawing them is very slim, and having the card when I need it, having the energy to play them, and so forth and so forth, is very slim. That's why sometimes just being better at the game, playing the game faster, right, dealing more damage, changing your play lines a little bit, waiting a turn, right, being patient, waiting a turn to play your 4-drop. Instead of playing on turn 4, play on turn 5, maybe even on turn 6, right? It just depends. So switching up how you play the game while you're playing it in itself is equivalent to side decking. So these are the couple reasons why I don't side deck and try to avoid side decking. That and I'm just so used to just building decks and playing them as is and fine tuning them to make sure they work to win the game the way I want, that why am I going to waste time with side decking? I get it in the competitive scene, certain matchups might be a little bit unfavorable, and this is just a way to kind of give you a fighting chance. That is the excuse, right? That is the reasoning behind side decking being an up thing, because they want to give you, the ability that if your opponent has a really, really, really good strategy, that you wouldn't be able to beat with your deck as is. But if you were to change some cards in your deck, you might be able to beat them. Then that's why side decking is a thing in most card games. But me personally, I'm against it. But because it's like, to me, it's like your skill should be what you side. Your skill should be the determining factor if your deck do good or not, right? Because it's like you built your deck to do something. You put cards in your deck specifically for you to play the game. The thing you're supposed to support your deck with is your experience, your knowledge. The decisions you make is what you're supposed to be siding in. So that's why I say I don't side in cards, I side in experience. I use that. And it's hard for people to mimic that, copy that. That's why, like I was mentioning earlier with my whole deck profiles, is like you can see my list, you know the cards in my deck. What you don't know is how I'm going to use them, the decisions I'm going to make, if I'm going to make my lines of plays. Like you might see a 4-drop in my deck and might think that turn 4 is when I'm going to play it. But in reality, no, it might be turn 6 that I play the card. Like my plan is probably to wait until turn 6 to play that card, because it's part of a combo. You might not know what that combo is. It might be a secret combo. It might not be the deck's main strategy. It might just be something that I know that I can do with the deck because, I know what's in my deck. I know what the cards in my deck, and I know that if I'm ever on turn 6, there's a particular set of cards that if I combine them together, I can get a certain type of result, and it might be for a specific matchup, right? A specific deck that I might want that strategy. So I would know that because I have the knowledge and experience. But somebody looking at my deck profile would not know that. They wouldn't have the knowledge and experience that I have to know how to do what I do when I do it, right? So that's why, it's like I do my best to try to share knowledge. That's why I used to talk a lot in my older videos, try to share some, make the deck profiles a little more in depth, try to give them as much knowledge and experience and ideas and train of thought into the videos. But ironically, most people didn't spend the time to actually watch the whole video. They just watched, at most, according to YouTube, people don't spend more than 2.5 minutes watching my videos. Even though my videos are like 30 minutes long, the watch time should be at least 20 minutes plus, but they're not. They're 2 minutes. So it's like, damn, if people are only watching 2 minutes of my videos, why am I making 30-minute videos, right? So I've been cutting back on a lot of videos, or at least in the deck profiles, I've been trying to make them under 10 minutes, hoping that maybe at least I get 5 minutes watch time. At least if people watch half of the video, that's something. I'm not trying to waste a lot of my time because I have a lot of stuff to do, so I don't want to spend too much time doing a lot of things that people are not caring for. But videos like this, where they're longer, that's because there's a lot. I have to say a lot of things. I want to, a lot of things on my mind. I want to share. And for those who actually care about, this type of stuff, like they want these types of insights, these types of thoughts. They want to hear, different perspectives of the game. Then that's what this is for. And I'll just leave the video at that.